What's up, guys? It's B.Wize here once again for another episode of back, ladies and gentlemen, to Filthy Rich Part 2. It's B.Wize, spelled with a Z, now with an S. Briefly, I'm going to go into and kind of recover what I talked about Filthy Rich Part 1. So if you're just seeing Filthy Rich Part 2, I encourage you to click on the link and go see my Filthy Rich Part 1. But in a nutshell, basically I was talking about how so many prisoners are treated like slaves. We as Americans talk about how we should, give each and everybody the same opportunity. Everybody deserves a second chance, so on and so forth. But as I stated in Filthy Rich Part 1, actually it is cheap labor that these slaves give in order to make million-dollar corporations exist and to sell their products in manufacturing. And I'm actually reading a stat. So former Oregon State Representative Kevin Minix recently urged Nike to cut its production in Indonesia and bring it to his state in Oregon, telling the shoe manufacturer that there won't be any transportation costs. We're offering you competitive prison labor here in the state of Oregon, which means that if you don't know anything about the Nike Corporation, is actually in Oregon where it manufactures its products. So basically, Representative Minix was basically saying, hey, instead of you paying such and such in Indonesia, whatever you're paying them, that basically we can use our own citizens to use that labor, paying these guys 17 cents an hour, which I'm pretty sure they was paying Indonesian children at that time as well, or even more. But we'll take our U.S. citizens that have committed criminal acts, the same people that basically putting them in this situation has said, hey, we're going to give you a second chance, but they enslave you. And according to Representative Minix, we're going to give these guys 10 to 17 cents a day to work 6 to 9 hours to manufacture $1 million product and then sell it for hundreds of dollars. So, with that being said, the new business, before I get into the actual preschool bandits of actually being a preschooler who can be locked up for being a felony, so preschool felons. Before I get into that point, though, I want to talk about the new business of importing and exporting inmates. So again, I'm reading this source about the prison industry. Profits are so good that now there is a new business importing inmates with long sentences, meaning the worst criminals. When a federal judge ruled that overcrowding in Texas prisons was cruel and unusual punishment, the CCA signed contracts with sheriffs in poor countries to build and run new jails and share the profits. According to December 1998 at Atlantic Monthly Magazine article, this program was backed by investors from Merrill Lynch, Shearson Lehman, American Express, and Allstate, and the corporation was scattered all over rural Texas. That state's governor, Ann Richards, followed the example of Mario Cuomo in New York and built so many state prisons that the market became flooded, cutting into private prison profits. So basically, importing now, just like you would import a good or export a good, the same thing is going down in the prison systems, where the high-level criminals basically are put into one regimen of systems, and we know that, and that's another segment I can get into, of how basically prisoners are basically are popularized and generalized and put into a genre of where they need to go, from misdemeanors to murder cases to so on and so forth. But sticking on task, we're treating human lives. We're basically saying that just because you committed a crime, that we're going to commit you, we're basically going to look at you as a machine. So we put you in a box with bars, we enslave you, we don't give you the proper education, we don't give you the proper resources. Even though that you've committed a crime, we don't give you the proper resources in order for you to be treated like a human being. And now we're going to actually treat you like an import and an export. So you'll actually be, basically the greater your crime, you can be exported somewhere to be able to do manual labor. So whatever company, organization needs workers, manufacturers, human hands, that's where you be shipped based on the severity of your crime. Now, with that being said, let's go to this ridiculous, let's go to this ridiculous, this out of box, out of mind, new state law. But first, let's go into a commercial. We'll be right back.
Say you wanna give in, but love won't let you. Hold your breath for tomorrow, let the future catch you. Just smile, just smile, just smile, just smile, just smile.
I can't be more blunt than I'm about to be with this, because this, when I read this, when I heard about this, my wife told me about this, I saw this on the news, and at first I thought it was a prank, I thought it was a joke, I thought it was a TMZ prank, but when I actually figured out it was actually real, it blew my mind. And I'm talking especially to you parents out there, because this is going to affect your children. This is going to affect your life significantly, especially if you have more than one child. And I'm going to actually say this, and this is going to actually offend, this is going to actually appeal to African American and impoverished people, which is basically African American. State of Missouri, January 1st, 2017, the state of Missouri will implement a public school policy sure to accelerate the descent into policy state dystopia. Which means, well, let me keep on reading. The Hazelwood School District put out a memo to parents and guardians stating that according to Missouri statute, fights at school or on buses will be treated as felonies, which can result in up to 4 years of prison, fines, or probation. And I'm gonna actually read this. To you guys, so you know that I'm not giving you any crap. You can actually go up and look this up online. It says, "Dear parents and guardians, we want to make you aware of a few new state statutes that will go into effect on January 1st, 2017, which may have a drastic impact on how incidents are handled in area school districts. The way the new state reads, if a person commits the offense of an assault in the 3rd degree, this will now be classified as a Class E felony, rather than a misdemeanor. If he or she knowingly causes physical injury to another person, hits someone, or has a fight with another individual, and an injury occurs, one or both participants may be charged with a felony." What does this mean for students? For example, if 2 students are fighting and 1 child is injured, the student who caused the injury may be charged with a felony. Students who are caught fighting in school, bus, or on school grounds may now be charged with a felony, no matter the age or grade level. If this assault is witnessed by one of the school resource officers, police officers, or the local law enforcement officials have to intervene. I'm going to read that again. Students who are caught fighting in school, bus, or on school grounds may now be charged with a felony, no matter the age or grade level. So let me put a disclaimer in here before I actually go off. B.Wize and who I am as a person does not condone any type of violence whatsoever. That's the disclaimer. Now, how many viewers can actually watching this can actually say when they read this, how many people can actually say, hey, I've been in preschool, elementary school, preschool. I've gotten into a couple fights. How many people can say that? Raise your hands. Yeah, I know you with me. Ball fist, right? Okay, so if you can actually state that, think about right now. Right now. That means almost more than half of the people that are grown now, that grew up back when, would have been felons. Would have been considered, according to this new law, would have been felons. So this is going to drastically affect a lot of parents. It's going to affect a lot of children that are under the age, like our preschoolers. I mean, this is ridiculous. So let me get this straight. You're going to charge my 5-year-old son for getting into a fight. And I want to be perfectly clear here. Now, it didn't specify if my child or a child was actually defending himself. It didn't specify. I'm going to speculate, but it didn't specify. It didn't specify that if a bully is picking on a particular child and the child who's being bullied defends himself and he hurts the bully, that if this applies. I'm going to speculate and say that it does. That child who was defending himself that hurt the bully will be charged with a felony. Okay? Now, I see that parallel to if a man is defending himself and he kills another man at the max. If in a perfect utopia of our law system, it would be considered manslaughter. But going back to the point being, you're telling me that my 5-year-old son gets into a fight at 5 years old, that he can be charged with a felony? But now we have people who are serving 15 years for selling and distributing marijuana. Did I miss something? But this is the type of judicial system that we live in. Now, I know people are going to say, well, you know, you have a skewed argument. Honestly, I don't really give a damn. Because the point of the matter is that your child is going to be affected because he got into a fight. We all know as adults that most people don't like each other. Sometimes words or harsh words are thrown out sometimes because we get into arguments. We're frustrated with certain individuals at work, at home, and sometimes fists fly. However, as adults, we do understand that to be violent is an irrational type of thinking. As adults, if you're a rational thinking adult, you understand that. These are 5-year-old kids. And as a former educator who taught in the public education system for about 2 to 3 years, I've seen plenty of times where fights could have escalated, or there were fights and I had to break them up. And you're going to charge these kids with a felony? You're going to actually charge these kids with the felony. Now, as I was actually thinking about spontaneously thinking about the kids who are being bullied, because we know there's a lump sum of kids who are being bullied. And if you know what I'm talking about, if you had a bully and you finally stood up to your bully and you got in a fight with him, they didn't specify in this article or in the statute that I've read so far. So guys, if you do have a piece of information that basically says this doesn't apply to people who actually are in the moment of self-defense, please let me know. But as far as I can read, if a person is being bullied, he stands up for. If a person is being physically bullied, and that person that's being bullied actually comes to the realization, is going to wake up and say, I am tired of getting my ass kicked. Well, today when you stand up and when he actually stands up for himself, and the bully that day comes and actually tries to shove him into a locker, and the person being assaulted tries to defend himself physically and breaks the bully's nose, you're telling me that that kid is actually going to be punished for standing up for himself? This is the system that we live in, ladies and gentlemen. And it saddens me because now we're going to get to the fact of who I believe is going to affect. It's going to affect really African Americans, young African American males, because number one, understanding that they already live in an environment that is already violent. Two, they don't have the best resources at schools. And three, they're boys, they're people just like us, and their minds are malleable, they're immature. Okay, we're talking about elementary, preschool, elementary, secondary education. When you go from the preschool, now I'm going to read it again. It says, students who are caught fighting in school bus or on school grounds may now be charged with a felony no matter the age or grade level. That means I could be in first grade, 6 or 7 years old, and be charged with a felony because I got into a fight. Now, these are kids that, number one, are immature, that don't understand. Going back to my point about the young African American males. Now, this is going to affect, I think if you actually, when they start taking stats, and if you look at the stats maybe a year or 2 years later, this is really going to affect, this is a part of the racist system that I truly believe is another implementation of getting young black males into this prison system, which is totally ridiculous, because now you're going to start them off from grade level 1, from preschool, to already have a record. This is going to affect young black African American males, or people, and mostly people that is in poverty. Now, who is the most people that is in poverty, statistically wise, is mostly African Americans. I know there was a statistic that basically said there's more whites at one time that was applying for more welfare than black people was, but statistically we all know where the hood, or where the inner city is mostly black kids. Because when you go to private schools, you rarely seldom hear about fights, you rarely seldom hear about any anything outside the norm of just regular school days that have riots and violence and all that stuff. You don't have that in private schools. We're talking about any inner city school kids, or schools that are mostly populated with African Americans. Now, I think this is going to target mostly African American males, because we are the most aggressive. We are the most, I would say, troubled race, or kids, or people between the ages of 5 to high school. And the reason why I say that, because statistically most African American males do not have a father in the home, which they don't have no discipline, which means that they don't have no male figure to basically say, this is how you defend yourself without using violence. So if you bring in a new system that basically says that if a person gets into a fight at the age, no matter what age they are, no matter what grade they're in, if you get into a fight, that basically you're going to be charged with a felony. If you look at World Star, most of those people, most of those kids are within that age range on school grounds of legitimacy between that law, which means that they're between the ages of, and mostly in high school. So a lot of these high school kids is going to be charged as felons most of the time. Most of these kids are going to get kicked out because of this new law in Missouri. Now, let's jump ahead a year or two later. So if it happens in Missouri, don't you think they're going to try to implement this in other cases? I think this is going to be a test run to see how this works. Now, let's think economically. Now, I talked about so far in Filthy Rich Part 1 how the economy is being boosted. So my intake is a system is created to not give people the right means to live. Basically, the improper education, improper resources of economics, of knowledge of how to cultivate themselves as people and to use their minds to be able to create income. So when you don't give that, they're more prone to violence. Then when you put people in low income type situations, they are prone to violence. And let's go to commercial. We'll be right back. B.Wize. Stay tuned. Filthy Rich Part 2.
I'm sick and tired of all this shit.
Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So, as I was saying, and as I was going into the thinking ahead now that we have this new law that will be placed in January the 1st, 2017. Basically, your kids are going to be affected. So I always talk about the economic strategy of how this system views you as a person, of how they can make money. So, like I was saying, they put you in an environment that basically doesn't give you the right education, doesn't give you the resources to perform economically to make yourself a dollar. Think about it. When's the last time when you go to school you didn't learn how to balance a checkbook? You didn't learn things about how to operate and run your own business, of how to look for a business loan, what the government has for grants. They didn't teach you none of this stuff in school. Okay, so when you give people the improper education and you basically stack them on top of one another, those people are prone to violence. Those people are prone to crime. Those people are prone to these natures type of things. So the system has created that. Now the system on the flip side has said, okay, even though we put you in this situation, we will give you a consequence for being in that situation. Which means now I'm gonna create, since I created a criminal, I'm gonna have a system, or I'm gonna have a device or institution for them to go, or to put them in, to make money off them, even though I put them in this situation. Now I'm gonna charge them, I'm gonna give them tickets, citations, put them in debt for not being able to pull himself up or herself up by their own bootstraps and be just like everybody else in the economic society, in the prospering economic society. Now, with that being said, let's take how does this parallel to what's going to happen? So, in Detroit has one of the most, if you look at the city of Detroit, shout out to the D-Town. Shout out to the D-Town, man. Love the D-Town. And when I look at Detroit, the state in which Detroit is in, I'm pretty sure if you look up there, they have one of the highest murder rates, dropout rates. It's a lot of negative stuff that goes on. I am originally from the state of Louisiana, so we have one of the highest murder rates, the highest dropout rates, the highest illiteracy rates, and probably in the top 10 in people that is jobless. And so, how does this new law parallel? If, let's say, this law goes down, let's say in 5 years, 10 states have adopted this law of your child, no matter the age, if he's caught into a fight or gets into an altercation, and he's going to be charged with a felon. That means that kid has already had a record. Now, we already know in the justice system for guys who have been through the system how hard it is to get a job. How hard it is to get a job as a felon or with a record. Now, we always talk about how do we improve the economic system? How do we improve the economic system? Well, the way you improve, number one, the way you improve the economic system is not by giving people records at the beginning of their lives by being 5 years old because they got into an altercation at 5 years old. Now, that's going to carry them, that's going to be on their record their whole lives. Keep in fact, when I talked about the point of being, it's going to affect greatly African Americans, most of your prison system, I put a statistic in Filthy Rich Part 1, 1 in 3 African American males is going to be prone, is more likely to go to prison. It's 1 in 12, I believe, with Hispanics, and it's 1 in 17 in Caucasians or Europeans. Now, with this new sanction going on, it's probably going to go down from like almost every single, at least one out of every 2 males is probably going to go to jail, or is probably going to be incarcerated, because it's going to be an effect of a person being frustrated for not being able to get a job because that brother or sister got into a fight at 5 years old in preschool, in high school, in middle school, and they were charged with the felon. Now they have to go around, and they may be great people. They may have, I mean, come on, guys. Come on. Rational thinking. 5 years old, 6 years old, first grade, second grade, I'm going to get charged with a felony. And so I may be a straight A student, may get in a fight. And because of that one scenario, one incident, that's going to carry me for the rest of my life, that's ridiculous. And I think that's no way to treat people. I think that's unconstitutional. I think by default and by judgment, that is eradicated. So for all my people out there, please write your senator, contact your legislature and say, and try to get this, if it comes to your state, try to get this vetoed, try to get this bill knocked out, because it's going to affect you and your children. Because I know, and it's going to greatly affect African-American young men. I guarantee you it's going to affect African-American young men. The statistics, if you look in schools, most men that are on, in juveniles, most young men that are, and young girls that are suspended, in detention, expelled, all that good stuff, is African Americans. So, us being the people that we are, and the influence and the situation that we come from, this is going to affect us greatly. Filthy Rich, Part 3, possibly in the making. If you guys have anything that you want to talk about, please hit me up and let me know that has to do with the prison system. Or if you want to add in, if you want to be interviewed, if you want to give your take on, if you want to come in and say, well, B.Wize, I disagree with you, I agree with you. I want to know why. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you know. I want to know if you can be in addition to this and even enlighten my mind on a lot of things that I may not know. So I always want to be a student. Thank you guys to all my subscribers. Now I am up to 78 subscribers. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys so much. I have about 300 views on my new single that just came out featuring Roshan Eve called Just Smile. It will be in the link above here. So make sure you click on it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're following your dreams. Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. And always, always enjoy life. Filthy Rich Part 3 coming up. Peace.
So you wanna get in, but love won't let you hold your breath for tomorrow. Let the future catch you. Just smile. Just smile, just smile, just smile, just smile. Right today.